Hey there, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be rebuilding this direct drum from an A727 automatic transmission. Let's get to it. When rebuilding one of these drums, we've got a few different options. This was originally a 4-clutch drum, so we're going to take a look at how we reassembled that, just back to bone stock. We'll also look at some options to improve the performance, so get more clutches in this so you've got more friction, which actually gives you a better grip. So let's take a look at a few ways to do this. Before we start rebuilding, we want to take a look at this drum itself. This is a used drum, came out of the transmission, and it's nice and shiny here. We actually want to get that to a dull, like micro scratch texture, so that the band grabs it a little bit better. Best thing to do that is just some Scotch-Brite. So we're just going to Scotch-Brite this to scuff it up until it looks more like that. Not a huge difference from that to that, but that'll make that band work better. Now it looks the way I want it to. Still shiny. You definitely can't feel any scratches, but it's not that gloss. It's got this little bit of a dull finish to it. Next we're going to get this piston ready, which means replacing this lip seal here. Boy, this guy is... There we go. So here's the new one. You can see one side does not have a groove. The other side does have a groove. And in profile, you can see it's beveled out like this. You want that bevel this way so the groove will be up. Just like that. Then we'll use some transmission assembly lube and lubricate all the way around this. The important thing is it should not be dry when you assemble it. Then this piston goes down in the drum. Now, it's gone down and it feels like it's at the bottom, but it's just that seal sitting on the lip. So we want to rock it back and forth a little bit with some pressure. There we go. And now it has gone all the way down in. Now we're going to put in these return springs with this retainer and clip. Doing this requires a special tool, some sort of a spring compressor. I'm using this one. Got a link up here to my video that showed the modifications I had to do to this to get it to actually work. It wasn't very good right out of the box. This is just a standard drum, putting it back together standard. So I'm going to use 9 of these springs. So you can see the pattern is 3 springs, 2 blanks, 3 springs, 2 blanks, all the way around. Get your retainer on, make sure all of the springs are underneath. We're going to use the compressor. These little blades go into this groove, and this pushes down on this piece. You can see there's a groove right here. That's where this ring is going to go. But this groove needs to be above these. Otherwise, these get in the way when you try to put the ring in. I just use a pair of circlip pliers here. Then we'll release the pressure. And there we go. That's ready. At this point, we need to make some decisions on how we're going to build the internals on this. I know that I'm going to use these red frictions. They're a higher performance than the standard. Standard ones kind of are a off-white or tannish color. We need to go in with steels, steel first against this piston, and then frictions. And we want to get as many in here as we can. So this is a standard thickness steel and a standard thickness friction. And if we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 steels, 4 frictions. This is what it would have been factory. Then we have this pressure plate, which is thicker, that goes on top of that. And you can see that that brings us right up to that groove. And then it had a wavy snap ring that would go in and hold all that together. So what holds the internals and externals together is when this gets smashed and those frictions get squeezed together by hydraulic pressure. The more clutches, the more of these that are in there, the more surface area you have for holding that. So the more of these you can get in, the better. There are a few different ways that you can get there. It depends also on your drum. So you can see this one has a fairly high up groove. This one has 2 grooves. It started its life as a drum with just this lower groove, and then it was machined to have another groove higher up in. So if we take a look at this one, how many can we get into it? So there's 4 clutches. Now this is the stock pressure plate. Drop it down. You can see it's a little bit below that groove. But if you take this pressure plate and turn it in a lathe to look like this, look at how much gap we have before that top groove now. So at this point, we can throw in another steel and another clutch. Put that down. And now we're at that top groove here. So here we've got 5 clutches. So we've actually gone from 4 to 5, which is a 25% increase. A third option, you can use your standard drum. And you can buy frictions that are thinner. So here's the friction that's the stock, and here's this new one. Look at how much thinner that is. So now I can actually take this there's 6 clutches. Again, take a pressure plate that's been machined, drop that in, and you can see we're at the groove on a stock drum. So this one has 5 in it. This one has 6 in it. So it really depends on how much you want to spend, how much work you want to do, and really what the end result that you're after. This is definitely going to be more bulletproof in the transmission that I'm going to put behind my Magnum that's going into my 74 Power Wagon. This is what I'm going to use. Right now, I'm doing kind of an emergency build for a 78 tin grill that just blew up this week, so we're going to go with this one. Before we assemble it though, I need to pre-soak all of these clutches in ATF. So I'm going to take these out, put them into a pan with some ATF, and let them sit for about a half hour. While those clutches are soaking, let's talk about the steels. This is just a standard factory steel. This one's a brand new one, hasn't been installed. This is one that has been run. You can see how shiny it is compared to that. And this one is a new choline steel. Choline is a harder material than the factory ones, so it's generally considered a more performance one. These are the ones that are going to go into that 6 clutch drum. For this, I'm just going to use standard steels. These ones you can reuse. They're just fine as long as they're not warped. So you want to check them, put them on a bench or something, make sure that they're still flat. If they're flat, they should be fine. But you do want to, just like you did with the drum, you want to dress these. Try to get rid of all of this shininess. And again, some green Scotch-Brite works just fine. So you want to go from this shiny to this dull. Make sure you do both sides. It's been a couple hours of soaking on these while I did some other work on the transmission. Now we're going to assemble it. One of the reasons that we did all of that cleaning, we want to make all of the steels this nice dull. But by cleaning them, it gives us an opportunity to look for problems. This one, let's see. See if you can tell here. It's kind of got this goldish color, whereas this one does not. This one got really warm. It might still be good, but since it got hot, if I have an option of using one that didn't, I'm going to use the one that didn't. You want to take the pressure plate and do the same thing, Scotch-Brite it. The reason this one isn't Scotch-Brited is because you can see it's actually broken. So this one's junk. This is the kind of thing that you would find as you're cleaning them up. This is the pressure plate that I'm putting in, this one that's been machined. And this will let us get that one more clutch. Okay, I'm going to put this snap ring in. I've got several different sizes of these, so we're going to put this in, and then we're going to check the clearance to see how we're looking. Once we have that assembled, we now need to make sure everything is seated, make sure it's operating properly, then we can check the clearance. So we're going to take the piece of the pump here and install it. Make sure your sealing rings are in, this bushing is in, everything there is good. That's fully seated. Now on the back here, we've got these 3 check balls. Well, they're not really check balls, they're 3 plugs. from where they machined this direction, they drilled the hole and then drilled the hole and they plug it here. But at any rate, the rightmost here, this is the hole that fluid goes through that pushes that piston forward. So we're going to use air, push here, and that's going to push that piston forward and close all of these clutches. Use an air gun that has like a soft tip. I'm just going to put it in here. This is a adjustable. I'm not running a full like 110 psi. You put it in there, and if you watch, you can see that it's activating. Everything is doing what it's supposed to do. And that motion is going to help make sure everything's seated, everything's done right. So we know it's working, and now we can check the clearance. As a general rule of thumb, you want us to have a clearance of about 15 thousandths per clutch. Since we have 5 in here, we want about 75 thousandths. If you've got a wavy snap ring like this, you can see there's no clearance here and it opens up. You want to measure underneath the widest part. This one's hard to measure because the pressure plate isn't flat, it's been machined. But we're going to do our best. Got some feeler gauges here. This is a 0.24 and a 25, so this gives us 49, which is not enough. But just as an indicator, we then take this and we try to get it underneath. And it's going under. It's hard again because of that machine surface. You might try some of these angled feeler gauges. Again, in this case, it's not going to help much. Well, let's see. We've got a 26 and a 25. And a 20. So that gives us roughly 70. And we're shooting for 75. And it's not going under there. So I think we need more clearance. To get more clearance, we can go with a thinner washer. This is about the thinnest I have. Or you can go with thinner clutches. They make these in different thicknesses. Or you can go with a thinner steel. If it's just a few thousandths, you can actually put this into a lathe and turn it thinner. But here's a good example. These are the same clutches I have here. This is roughly 95 thousandths thick. This one is closer to 60 thousandths. Looks like it's about 62. Once soaked, it's probably up around 65. So by putting one of these in instead of one of these, I have gained 30 thousandths of clearance here. And that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to put one of these thinner ones in to open that gap up. You can see in the book right here, this is our front clutch clearance, 082 to 151. So it's a pretty wide range. I'm guessing we were at about 65, 70 with that one. So we added another 30 thousandths by going with the thinner clutch at the top. So we're probably now at around 90, 95, somewhere in there. I'm guessing we're, definitely less than 100,000, so it should be good enough. All right, this front drum is ready to go. I'm going to bag it, put it on the shelf while we do the rest of the assembly. Thanks for watching.